Hello grade 6 learners, I hope that you are doing well and that you are coping during this lockdown period. I hope that you are having an adventurous time during this new online adventure. Now, we have started a new topic, solutions. And I want us to quickly look at what a solution is. Now, a solution is a mixture in which we cannot identify the different substances that was put in to make the solution. So we have a new mixture, but we cannot tell what was put in it. That is called a solution. Now, we're going to be doing 2 experiments in this lesson. For the first experiment, we'll be looking at activity 2 on page 70 and 71. Now, I will be doing the first experiment for you, and you are more than welcome to do the second experiment yourself at home when you have time. So, for the first experiment, what we will be doing is we will be making different solutions. Now we'll be identifying, are both of them solutions or not? Now remember, the most important thing is knowing what is considered a solution and a mixture. A mixture is where you can see all the substances, okay? Where a solution is you cannot identify the different substances that made up the solution. So, let's get started. Now, in this experiment, we will observe how copper sulfate dissolves in liquid. So, if we look here, I have copper sulfate, which you can see, you can buy it at Discount. Now, remember our safety rules of science. We are not allowed to taste anything unless your teacher tells you to. But in this case, we will not be tasting the copper sulfate. And in this bag, I have normal plain table salt. So what we'll be doing first, I have 2 jars. Now the water is warm. I don't know if you can see the steam, but it is warm water. I'm going to put 1 jar here for now. Now, in this jar, we have warm water and we take our copper sulfate. So we need to see how it dissolves. So we have a teaspoon. So what I'm going to do is, remember, the same amount of liquid in each jar and then the same amount of substance, meaning the solid, in each jar. So here, I'll take 1 teaspoon of copper sulfate and I'll just put it in the jar, but I will not stir it. Now, remember, it's important that we do not taste these chemicals, but I want you to look at what's happening. I put it in, and can you see automatically the water has changed and the copper sulfate particles are finding their way in between the water particles and they are evenly dispersed. So they are actually dissolving in and amongst themselves. Now, I hope you can see this. I want to try let you see a little bit closer. These particles are dissolving themselves. I haven't stirred it. So we'll set this one side and move to this one. Now, it's very important, grade 6, that you observe carefully as there is questions in activity 2 that you will need to answer. So let's set that aside for now. They are busy dissolving. Alright, let's hope that Mam's water is warm enough. Okay, now we're putting a teaspoon of salt in this jar of warm water. I'll just put that to the side. Now, sorry, Mam's salt has a little bit of tea inside, but there is the salt. Now, if we look here, the water hasn't changed much and the salt has settled immediately. So it is not becoming a solution as yet. So we can still see the mixture of substances. Here we have the copper sulfate. Now, usually what happens, and I think maybe Mam put a little bit too much copper sulfate in here, but they actually dissolve the particles themselves, or maybe ma'am just didn't use warm enough water. So we were not supposed to actually stir the copper sulfate. But if we look here, the copper sulfate has dissolved, okay, and it is dissolving, and it has changed and become a solution. So this is a solution. Now, if we leave this long enough, then it will continue and it will be a full solution. Then we have a solution of salt and water. So I'm going to stir the salt and water. Now, what happens when we stir the salt and the water is the rate of dissolving is faster. So the salt actually dissolves faster, meaning the solution is becoming a solution faster. So there we have it. Now, if we look here, we just have plain copper sulfate liquid. Alright, now we're not allowed to taste this. And here we have our water. Now it doesn't look any different. It looks just like normal water, but a little bit more cloudy. So if I put my finger, remember it's safe to do this, and I just dip it in there. Now remember it's warm, and I taste it. It tastes really, really salty. So now we have a salt water solution. Now, if we look at both are a solution, but the rate of dissolving is different. One requires stirring, one doesn't, but it takes different times for the particles to dissolve and become one. Grade 6s. Now let's get into experiment 2. I hope that you enjoyed experiment 1. Now remember, for experiment number 2, we are going to look at soluble and insoluble substances. So a soluble substance is a substance that can dissolve in a liquid, and an insoluble substance is a substance that cannot dissolve in a liquid. So for experiment 2, I want you to understand that you are more than welcome to try this one at home, as most of these things that you will need would probably be in your kitchen cupboards or outside in the garden or somewhere around you, which you are more than welcome to try and test. So I encourage you to investigate this experiment on your own. Now remember, if you do this experiment, I would love to see. Please send me some photos or a video recording, anything you like, on the WhatsApp group, or you can WhatsApp it to me personally onto my number, or send me an email. Now, let's get started. So this experiment is activity 3 on page 72 and 73. Now, for this experiment, we are going to investigate the solubility of solids in water. Here we have 6 containers filled with water. Now it says there you can fill with 100 ml of water. I have put 200 ml of water so that you could be able to see it better in the video. Now, for each container, I have 6 different substances. So I'm going to put 1 teaspoon in each container and we'll go from there. So for the first container, I will be putting a teaspoon of sand. Now remember, we are checking for if it is a soluble or insoluble substance. So grade 6s, I need you to observe carefully. In the second one, we'll put flour. As you have noticed, I have not stirred yet. In the third container, I will be putting a teaspoon of beans or samp. The next one is a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of sugar, and last but not least, a teaspoon of curry powder. Now, there we have all 6 different substances. Now remember, when you do this experiment at home, you do not need to test all 6, even one of them. Just give it a go, give it a try, and see that you will learn something and enjoy it. Now, what I want you to look at, I'm going to show you each one, just so you can see. This is the sand. I want you to look at what happened. Remember, we've only put the substance in. This is the flour, the little white beans, the salt, the sugar, and the curry powder. Now, grade 6s, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stir each mixture. So what we do is we just stir each of the mixtures and the solutions, and we see what happens. Now, it is very important, grade 6s, that you put the same amount of liquid and the same amount of solid in each container. Now that we have stirred this solution or mixture, I want you to look, because you're going to need to draw pictures of every single container and see what happens. Does it settle? Does it become a solution? Does it separate? Whatever it is. I'm going to stir the flour now. Remember, keep an eye out, because you're going to have to draw a picture. There's the flour. And you see that some of the flour particles have not dissolved. Okay. There's the beans. As we can see, the beans settle. They haven't dissolved, so they are insoluble. The next one, this is the salt. Okay, so salt will dissolve. Remember, grade 6s, it also depends on how long it has been sitting for, and the rate of dissolving differs with stirring and mixing. It also has a purpose. There's the next one, and then the last one. So, now I want you to sit and think, which of these substances are soluble and which ones are insoluble. So let's have a look one more time. The sand, please remember you need to draw this as well. Our flour, look if it's insoluble or soluble, and look carefully so you can draw and label each container. Now, grade 6s, I hope you have a better understanding of what a solution is and where the difference between a soluble and an insoluble substance, and the difference between a mixture and a solution. Now remember, all this is important for you to build your correct knowledge foundation. So, a solution, a mixture, whether it is soluble solution or insoluble, is the substance able to dissolve. Okay, able to dissolve, it's soluble, or it's insoluble, so it doesn't dissolve, you can still see it. Now, I hope that you enjoyed that. Just to have you look at the copper sulfate, it has now dissolved on its own. I would please like you to complete activity 2 on page 70 and 71, all the questions, and I would like you to complete activity 3 on page 72 and 73. Thank you for attending this wonderful online class. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me on the WhatsApp group, Google Classroom, or any other way you can get hold of me. Just know I miss you all very much. Stay safe